This is Lewis Hart for the Ring magazine. Delighted today to be joined with world heavyweight contender Joseph Parker here on a nice Wednesday night. Yeah, how's things? How are you?
Things are great. Um, I'm currently in camp, enjoying it all, making the most of every day because it's not long now until the fight. But everything is very good, thanks.
Absolutely, and obviously a massive fight for yourself taking on Daniel Dubois on the 22nd of February. As you say, preparations for this fight. It's a pretty common question, pretty typical question, but with it being a world heavyweight title fight and so much that goes into it, is the feeling different? Is it a different feeling going into this one?
Well, let's see. I would say back then when the fight is bigger, or if it's in a bigger fight or a bigger event, you tend to change up the training, or you train more, or you train harder. It's not to say that you weren't training hard before, but I think with this fight, we're just treating it as another fight. Obviously, the championship of the world. But everything we've been doing leading into the fight I feel, has been very good. We're seeing benefits of it in training, endurance, power, speed, and I think we're just keeping it the same, but it's the same as the other fights. We're just staying focused and staying on top of what we need to do.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say there because I think a term that's used in football, especially when it comes to big matches, is play the game, not the occasion. Do you sort of subscribe to that in boxing as well? Like, is it important to sort of not let's not ignore how big this fight is, but as you say, like important to just sort of focus it on it as any other fight?
Yeah, I mean, if you look too far ahead to the fight, you sort of miss out on the process of and what you're trying to achieve, and that's to give every day the best that you can to prepare for the fight. You know, the fight will come eventually, and if you can do everything right in camp in terms of training, eating, resting, recovery, when the fight comes, the result will take care of itself. So I think as maturity has sort of come towards my way, I feel like I'm finding it more, I'm a bit more comfort and more understanding of what I'm doing. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting what you say there, and I guess for taking on someone like Daniel Dubois, I think it's fair to say people would say, look, it's the two most informed heavyweights in the world at the moment. Is that a better feeling knowing that you are this is the best version of yourself and this is the best version of Dubois? Everyone says form between yourself has been incredible. So is that a better feeling as well, knowing you're the two most informed heavyweights?
I think it's a great feeling. Listen, what people are saying that we're the most two informed heavyweights, but I haven't fought for a while, and Daniel's been on a good run. You know, he's been a lot busier than I have. So, but it's nice to be in the conversation. It's nice to be locked into this big fight, and it's what we've been waiting for. The last time I had a fight was in March with Zhang, so I've been waiting for a big fight, and they've presented me with this fight, an opportunity to fight Daniel for the title. So we've taken it on board, taking it with both hands, and you want to make the most of it.
You mentioned that there, and after getting a big win like Zhang and the big win with Wilder previously, to not have anything for 11 months, was that a bit of a frustrating time when you felt like, look, I've done so well here, like, why have I not got no opportunities?
Listen, I wouldn't say frustrating. I'll just say that I wanted to fight. I wanted to fight in 2024. I wanted to have two more fights. As a fighter, you want to keep busy. As a fighter, you want to keep fighting, and as a fighter, you want to train for something. And when you don't have anything locked in, there's no real goal. You know, so you're just training. You're training just to keep in shape. You're training to build, and once you have a fight locked in, then you know what you're training towards. So I wouldn't say frustrating, but I'll just say it's given me more time back home to spend more with family and friends, but also to work away quietly, and to prepare for this fight. You know, now that we have this fight locked in, everything that we've been doing in New Zealand, I think is going to pay off.
When you mentioned there, Joe, and you talk about being fighting more mature and having a better understanding for yourself, did you ever notice that difference? Like, was there ever a time, like when the tide changed or the screw changed, where you noticed that things are a little bit different?
Yeah, when you're younger, become champion of the world. We got a bit of money. Um, I don't know. It's just sort of like you don't really appreciate the position you're in. Well, for me, I'm speaking personally. For me, when I was champion of the world, I didn't really appreciate the position I was in, being champion of the world, and then I didn't really know that there were. I wanted that was the only goal I had, to fight for the championship of the world, and I wasn't thinking about unification. I wasn't thinking about undisputed. That was the only goal, and I think if you now fast forward to now and the chance to fight for the championship of the world again, if I win, it'll mean something very different. And I think that's because of the position I'm in. I appreciate it more now. I love it. I enjoy the journey. And like I said, I'm just making the most of it, making the most of training hard, fighting in big fights, and giving the best account of myself.
What would it mean to become heavyweight champion of the world once again?
Oh, two-time world champion at 33 years old, um, father, husband, fighter. It'll mean the world. Champion of the world, it'll mean the world.
Do you think as well with that feeling you mentioned there about when you're first world champion and sort of appreciating it more? Do you think it is an even more incredible achievement? Becoming the two-time heavyweight champion of the world is an incredible feat. But when you notice like the difference between when you had the world heavyweight title in 2018, then win it back, what, 7 years later? Do you think that means more as well, knowing that you've gone through that stage of your career where you've not been a world champion for 7 years and you've won it back again? Like not many people do that. And do you think it
I
makes it a
think
little bit more impressive?
it'll make it mean a lot more because it has been a while, since I've been champion of the world in 2016, lost it in 2018, and still been grinding away and putting in the work and still having that dream of fighting for the championship of the world again. So winning it would mean a lot more and for many reasons.
Yeah. In the heavyweight division, everyone can punch and everyone's a hard hitter. But when it comes to approaching a fight with someone like Daniel Dubois, where he does have this power, I'm sure you feel like you have the power to stop him as well. Do you feel like it does make you, when you face punches and you face people who can hit hard, it does make you a little bit more wary in your preparation?
Does listen, you have to be wary with punches. I was wary with Wilder, wary with Zhang, and definitely be wary with the bar and the form that he's been on, but also the stoppages that he's been able to get in the last three fights. Tough fight with Miller, went back and forth. Hergovich caught him with a lot of right hands, and then with the Joshua one was very impressive. So, but going into the fight, you can't really worry about what he's doing and you know what I mean. If you're too wary and if you're too worried about what he's doing, and if you're too defensive, it takes away from your plan. So going into this fight, I got Andy Lee looking after all the boxing, George Lockhart looking after strength, conditioning, nutrition, and I'm going to follow the plan that we have, and I want to do my best to execute it. And if I can, it'll be a nice night. But I'm just going to worry about what I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to say that, as you say there, like this wouldn't be the first punch you face, especially in a row. And when you look at like the long term plan, I know you said not too focused on it, but do you think it helps sort of when you have that long term build up of facing punches previously? I know sort of Wilder and Zhang are both sort of different types of punches when it comes to someone like Dubois. But do you feel like that is sort of like really good preparation when it comes to like Dubois being that goal as a champion?
Yeah, I think it's been great just to obviously all these fighters are different. Wilder's different to Zhang, Zhang is different to
Mm.
Dubois, Wilder's different to Dubois. But it's been great to have those fights under my belt and also to be able to avoid, the big punches. Avoiding being hit for 12 rounds. I know I got hit twice with Zhang and got dropped, but I was able to overcome that adversity in the fight, come back and to be able to be a busier fighter and to win on points. So it's nice just to get those fights under my belt. But I feel like this is a different fight altogether. Someone with high confidence, someone who's in form, and someone who has, I feel, more belief in himself.
When a lot of people make that claim about Dubois with the confidence and they talk about him having his belief, do you think that works in a negative factor? Becomes overconfidence, especially when you sort of see him calling out Usyk, etc. Like, do you think that works in negative favor?
I wouldn't. There's a lot of people making a big noise about going in and calling out Usyk. And I know he has a fight with me locked in, but was it really him that wanted to do it, or was he told to do it, or are they trying to set up a bigger fight for after this fight? You never know in boxing if it's really that person that's doing it or not. So for me, I know that Dubai has a good team around him. Hence, we've seen these great performances, and I know that they are smart enough to focus on this fight that's in front of them. And there is a lot of noise. There's going to be a lot of noise in boxing, but that's what boxing is, trying to set up big fights for the future.
That's what I was going to say. When people sort of they'll come to you, whether it be media or different people saying, "Look, I think Dubois is overconfident." There's some a lot of confidence from Dubois. Is it ever hard to ignore, as you say, hard to sort of just focus when people are sort of all making these claims and making that sort of noise?
Listen, noise is just noise, and I think you just, as long as you know what your focus is and what you're aiming to achieve, just stick with that. But noise, there's always going to be noise. It's just all part of it.
Yeah. There was a lot of reaction to the face-off that you've done with Dubois. I thought it was a very, very interesting one. But one thing I wanted to point out that your trainer Andy Lee made, he said, when the pressure is on him, he will revert back to type. Um, which obviously reverting back to type would probably be referencing to fight between with Joe Joyce and Alexander Usyk. Is that fully something that you subscribe to as well? You believe that you can make him sort of question himself in there?
When things aren't going the way they usually go for Daniel, then he does. It looks like he has a little trouble in the ring. He did, you know, questions will be asked of him, is he going to revert back to type? But we have seen though an improvements in those fights with Miller and Hergovich. You know, there were times in that fight where it was going the other way. Hergovich was catching him with a lot of right hands. Miller was putting it on him. It was going back and forth, but he didn't revert back to type. It's like I don't know, is that something that you can overcome? We've seen him overcome it in these fights, so maybe he's been working on it, and maybe he'll be much more improved for the fight with me.
Yeah. Before I do let you go, Joe, I'm sure a lot of people will have asked you about February 22nd. I did want to ask you about something that was happening a week after that. Your stablemate Paddy Donovan taking on Lewis Crocker. Yeah, what do you think of that fight? A real, real great Irish derby.
I think it's going to be a fantastic fight, a big fight for Ireland. It's going to be held in Belfast. I'm in camp with Paddy Donovan at the moment. He's a special talent. He's working, alongside Andy Lee, his trainer, and also he's doing work for George Lockhart on his strength conditioning and his nutrition. So I feel like with this fight, it's going to be a different Paddy because he's getting more of the complete package in terms of training and routine and structure, which is probably something he never had before. So I can see, listen, I've seen him in the gym. I've seen his speed, his sprints. I've seen him sparring, and he looks very exciting, an exciting fight to watch.
I don't know how much time you'd spend with Paddy or other fighters in the gym, but do you sort of adapt that role, being a sort of a more seasoned, experienced pro when it comes to someone like Paddy, where it's his first real shine in the big lights. You sort of take it and give advice and like sort of take him under your wing in a sense.
I think with Paddy, we are training alongside each other. We're training, every day together. And I think when you're surrounded by people like Andy Lee, who's been a world champion, myself, who's been a world champion, George Lockhart's been a world champion in his own right in MMA. When you surround yourself with these people, you can lean on each of them for advice, or each of us for advice. And I think Paddy is doing it, but also Paddy's his own man. Paddy wants to make this path his path, and which we're all going to be on to support.
Absolutely. Joe, do you want to say pleasure to speak to you? Really, really appreciate you taking time to speak to me. And yeah, all the best on February 22nd, mate. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Top man.